What's up, everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to another MXGP Legends race review, I guess is what we're calling these things. I've done these many times over the years, talking about the races that happened on the weekend. And if you are looking at the title of this video, you may have noticed that we're going to talk specifically today about this red flag situation that happened while Haiden Deegan was pretty far out in front of the first 250 class moto at Budds Creek on the weekend, and then on the restart went down in the first corner and then had a terrible moto. The second moto didn't go really exactly how he wanted to either, and it went from a day where he looked like he could go 1-1 with the speed that he had to a not good day, and a lot of the championship implications that come with that as well. So a lot of people I've seen just yelling and screaming about this red flag rule and all these things like that, and we're going to get into it today a little bit, and we're going to do so while playing the MXGP Legends Budds Creek track as sort of Haiden Deegan. So I'll talk about this track a little bit and just what I think of what they did with the track this year in Legends, and we'll get to that eventually, but I want to talk about this rule first. So if you watched on the weekend at all, basically what happened is Haiden Deegan started in second behind Jo Shimoda, and before the end of the first full lap, like literally the corner I'm going through right now, he took the lead away from Shimoda and started pulling away, and Tom Vialle was in third and Hunter Lawrence was in fourth, and no one was really passing anybody, but Deegan was definitely pulling away from the group. And it looked like that's kind of what the status quo was going to be, maybe a couple more passes, but no one was going to catch Deegan. Like, he had a 8 or 9 second lead, I think. And then, like right at the halfway point, just before the 15-minute mark, Hardy Munoz, who is a privateer rider, number 99 on a Kawasaki, went down really hard on the uphill triple in the back, was knocked out cold. If you see the photos of him on his Instagram, it was pretty bad how much, brunt he took to his face, and they weren't sure at the time, whether this was a worse injury than just a concussion, which a concussion isn't great, but, he was out cold for so long, they don't know, is his neck broken? Is this a back injury? And they had to backboard him to get him off the track as well. So it was a very serious situation, and he was on the track in a fairly precarious spot. He was out of the way enough that they could have just, done the whole moto or the rest of the moto with the red cross flag out in that section or on that jump. But I think just to be safe and to make sure they got medical attention to him as fast as they possibly could, they elected to red flag the race, this isn't the first time that a race has been red flagged a little bit later into a race. It happens pretty frequently in Supercross now, I feel like, and I'm sure it's happened in motocross before where it's happened with the red flag later in the race, and I'll talk about a specific instance of that in a minute. But yeah, they threw the red flag out, which stops the race as is, and what they elected to do after that was rack everybody up on the gates, and they staged them in order of the running order they were on the last completed lap. And in what it means by staged in the rule book is staging for a moto, which is gate selection. So Haiden Deegan, leading the moto and being in first place, got first gate selection. The moto was then shortened to what was the time remaining on the clock when the red flag was waved. And it was more or less a full restart and a 15-minute moto after that. And people were livid, especially after Deegan went flying into the back of Tom Vialle in the first corner. Vialle had the whole shot. I mean, there's no question about it. And Deegan just was really late on the brakes and kind of blew it himself. But, yeah, people were really upset. And, just from my standpoint, I'm also not, I'll explain the rule here in a minute, but I am not a fan of this rule. And I do think it does need to be changed. But the rule, as written in the Pro Motocross Rulebook, as written by the AMA, is exactly what they did. They followed the rule to a T, which is after 2 completed laps, a full restart of the moto will be warranted when a red flag is waved, and it'll go back to the last running order of the last completed lap, basically, which is exactly what they did. They followed their own rule book, so they didn't just throw darts at a dartboard and say, let's screw Haiden Deegan as much as we can. They literally followed the rule book to a T. If the moto had gone 5 minutes longer and they'd gotten past the 20-minute mark, which has happened before, the moto would have been called. It would have been considered a completed moto by the rule book, and the moto would have just completed right there with Deegan winning over Shimoda, Vialle, Lawrence, etc. If it was 5 minutes later. It just happened that it wasn't 5 minutes later. And people are, of course, going to say, well, what the heck? Why wasn't it a staggered restart? Like, this is so stupid. They do it in Supercross. Why not outdoors? Well, that's because there's different rules for Supercross versus outdoors. You also have to factor in there's always going to be less riders on the track in Supercross than there will be outdoors. If you take Hardy Munoz out, who was crashed, there's going to be 39 riders lining up, and they have to somehow do that fairly and in a staggered situation so no one passes each other and all this stuff like that. So I'll go over my opinions on what they could change, but they followed the rule book to a T, and I think that needs to be like perfectly enunciated to people so that they don't feel like things are just being made up. Like, go read the rule book. There's a separate rule book for Pro Motocross than Supercross. There is no staggered start rule in the AMA Pro Motocross rule book. The reason why there is a separate rule book for this is because forever they were literally classified completely as two separate series. The only reason that it's sort of a little bit combined this year is because of SMX. It's still, theoretically speaking, two separate series with, to a degree, two different AMAs that are involved as well, which is very confusing, and I would explain that, but it's going to be way too long to get into the gist of that. So, yeah, I mean, they followed the rule book. It sucks that it screwed Hayden Deegan, but anybody that was leading that moto would have been screwed by the same thing. Now, again, what I think that they could do to change this is, yeah, consider bringing in staggered starts. I had people hitting me up saying, well, just let them go one by one off of the gate as they were running. But there's not enough officials down there to like organize that. They would have to do it in some sort of uniform line. I've always thought it's a little bit weird that there's no such thing as like a pace bike, and there's they would do just pace laps behind this pace bike. So while they tend to Hardy Munoz, maybe they red flag it for that, but then they get them all back in line and then have somebody roll around the track in front of them as like a pace bike, and they have to slowly follow around them like it would be on a sight lap, more or less, where they just look around at the lines, do like a lap of that, lap or two, and then as they come back across the finish line, wave the green flag. I think that's pretty simple. Like, I don't feel anybody would struggle with that. You can't tell me that 39 riders that have an AMA Pro card couldn't roll around the track in first or second gear. That's pretty ridiculous. So I think that they should do or consider something like that. And if you happen to make a pass before the green flag waves, you get docked a position, or however many positions you gain before the green flag waves, because that's not, that's how they should write the rules. So I think they could consider something like that. I do think they could do staggered restarts, but they definitely need to change this rule moving forward, because it's a pretty stupid situation that all the work that went on in the first half of the moto was completely wiped away. And, it happens. Like other forms of motorsports, this has happened before. Like, legitimately, there was a Formula One race this past year that they restarted the whole race, I think like 4 or 5 laps in after like heavy rains and someone shunted into the barriers and stuff like that, and then they re-gridded everyone based on the running order. And I know it's different because then they're gridded, and so you have first actually has an advantage, whereas Deegan was just lined up alongside the other 38 guys that lined up onto the gate with him there. So I get it. I get people being upset, but the reality is AMA followed the rule to a T. It's pretty likely they're going to change it or do something moving forward because the backlash from this. And no, they were not screwing over Hayden Deegan specifically. Like, this would have screwed over Joe Shimoda if he was leading by 9 seconds. It just so happens, and in my opinion, if you look at the photos of Hardy Munoz after this situation happened, they definitely should have red flagged it, because he was really messed up. His face is really bloodied, bruised. He's got a bunch of like little cuts and holes across his face. Like, he hit hard, and I much prefer them taking the safety route and making sure that he was okay, as opposed to the show must go on. Let's have him run let's let them run over his body and all the medics on the track just to make sure that we don't, end up having somebody get screwed over by a restart. No, you restart the race by the rule book, and that's what they did. So I get it. People are frustrated, but I think that that's a change in the rules. We'll see moving forward. I did also say that there's like a little bit of a precedent to this. Like I said, there has been a moto that has been red flagged later than this. I think 22 minutes into the Thunder Valley first moto, I think it was last year, they red flagged it, and because it was 22 minutes in, it was deemed a completed race. The red flag came out because of lightning in the area, so there's any number of reasons why the race could be red flagged. In this situation, it was a medical emergency. In the past, it's been a weather situation or things like that. So, again, put the pitchforks down. I know that this screwed Hayden Deegan. It also screwed a lot of other people. Tom Vial didn't get out of the gate as well. Neither did Joe Shimoda. Joe Shimoda was like 19th after being second So Deegan went down, but so did other people. Like, just so happens that that's the way it went, and sometimes that's how racing goes. So yeah, but Hunter Lawrence does win the overall. He's got a pretty good situation going on with his championship lead going into the final race of the year. 22 points on Justin Cooper. But I think the real storyline rolling into Ironman this weekend is whether or not Jet Lawrence goes perfect, which, I mean, 4 rounds ago, watching Chase Sexton all over him in both motos at Millville, I would have told you it's unlikely he goes perfect, because at some point he's going to have like a tip over. It's going to give Chase the lead. Chase is going to, just put one moto in that actually comes all together. But Chase just keeps crashing. He keeps finding ways to hit the ground. Even in that second moto when he was arguably faster than Jet and even caught him after crashing, still just found a way to hit the ground. Like, just so frustrating to watch. Yeah, now Jet is 20-0. He is 2 motos away from the 4th ever perfect season in Pro Motocross history. And I feel like now it's definitely 100% doable. Like, I thought, 3 weeks ago, yeah, it's doable, but we've got to see him survive a couple things. This weekend, he started outside of the top 5 in the first moto. Not behind Chase, but outside of the top 5, and walked through all those guys. And when he decided he wanted to go to the lead, he passed them in a hurry. So he's definitely got the speed in hand to make it happen. And I feel like now that the title's wrapped up, it's just 2 motos dangling in front of him to wrap up the perfect season. If you see him get 2 decent starts, like even if he's 5th or worse, or like let's say 5 to 10 in both motos, he is going to send it to try to do the perfect season, because this is history. I don't think many people ever thought it was going to happen. Then Ricky did it twice, and we're like, okay, that's ridiculous. And then James did it, and we're like, well, James is an all-timer, so of course he's going to find a way to match Ricky in some regard. And now Jet as a rookie might do this? Like, that's crazy. And I don't want to hear anything about the only 22 motos versus the 24 that those guys ran. Like, Jet, if he finishes 22 motos in first place, he's done a perfect season, in my opinion. And he still says that he wants to try to sweep the SMX rounds after that, if he goes perfect in moto, to then be 25-0 on a 450 and then rub it in James and Ricky's face a little bit more. So we'll see if that happens. But we got to get through Ironman first. Going to be an interesting weekend. I will be going, and there's the Combine Friday, so another amateur scouting combine, which I always actually like the ones after Loretta's a little bit better, because suddenly not all of these like A-class prepping for Loretta's guys are in it anymore. Casey Cochran won the one at Redbud. He, I assume, is going to race Ironman 250s, the pro class, because he raced Budds Creek pro class. But maybe he drops down and does the combine again. But why I like it is just because then we have more of like some faces you're going to start seeing come to fruition in Supercross Futures and stuff like that in the following year. Shine through at the combine, which Noah Viney, for example, won the one at Fox Raceway. Like, that was kind of cool. And then this year he's been looking pretty strong. So yeah, excited to see the combine. Allegedly, Team USA might be announced this weekend. We'll see. There's obviously some drama surrounding whether or not Hayden Deegan will go, because I don't think he is going to go, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It sounds like Aaron Plessinger is definitely in. RJ Hampshire really wants to go. Chase Sexton wants to go, but he would need Honda to sign a 7-day contract with him, because his contract expires October 1st and the race is October 7th. And KTM, because of the new bike and just all that, I don't think wants to have Chase race it necessarily. So we'll see. I have no idea what's going to happen, but look for a team of something like Plessinger, Hampshire, maybe on a 450, and then I heard Barsha, maybe a 250. There's a lot of moving parts, and we still have no idea exactly what the team is going to be, but maybe this weekend we will know. So keep an eye out for that. But that's going to be my recap from the Budds Creek National, talking about the red flag situation, Jet's almost perfect season coming up, and a few other things as we roll into the finale of Pro Motocross this weekend. Excited for it. Hope to see you guys there as always, but appreciate you stopping by and watching another video here on the channel. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, hit me up in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.